Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking to Tim Fitzpatrick, president of Rialto Marketing. So I love talking about marketing, Tim, and I appreciate you being on the show today. You know, a couple things about you. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, but what I love about kind of what your company represents is you talk about that marketing should not be difficult. All you need is the right plan. And I am a huge believer that you got to plan things out, and marketing is no different. And I'm glad that we're talking here as we sit March 23rd, 2021, because a year ago we were just kind of entering the pandemic, and I felt like a lot of companies were, one of the first things they were cutting were their marketing budgets. And to me, the first thing that they should have been doubling or tripling this past year is their marketing budget. And so I think a lot of that is coming back, and it has been for many, many months. But to kind of kick us off a little bit, talk a little bit about kind of, I just want to kind of talk about marketing and why marketing is so important and why it's been so important this past year. Let's start there.
Sure. And thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm biased because I am a marketer, but, and I don't remember the exact quote, but there's a quote from Peter Drucker where he talks about the only thing that really matters in business is innovation and marketing.
Yeah.
Everything else are expenses.
Yeah.
You can have the best product or service in the world, and if you don't have marketing generating leads and new customers, it doesn't matter. There's so many people that had great ideas, that had awesome products and services, and they went out of business because they couldn't generate leads.
Yeah.
So marketing is super important. To me, it is a fundamental and a foundational element of your business that you have to have. And
you have to have,
one of the things you touched on was a lot of people, when the pandemic hit, cut marketing.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they view marketing as an expense.
Right, not an investment.
Not an investment.
Right.
And it's a mindset shift for a lot of people, but marketing is not a switch you turn on and off.
Right.
It's a flywheel, and you got to feed the flywheel each and every month. So as the more you feed it, the more it starts to spin, it starts to gain momentum.
Correct.
And if you continue to do that, it will bear fruit, you know?
Well, I think also, but I think also, marketing, to me, the goal of marketing is to get people knocking at the door. Right.
Yes.
But to get people knocking at the door, you need to have a clear message. You need to understand who your target audience is. You need to understand what your plan of marketing is. And so, and I think sometimes a lot of people don't understand what marketing is, right? Like, how do they define it? It's not just a newsletter, right? Which is very 1980s. Not that those don't work, they still do. But define what marketing is today, and define what consistent marketing is today.
So to me, marketing is getting someone who has a need or a problem you can solve to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's
now talk about what you do to execute on it, right? Because there's so many things. I think one of the things that stops people from marketing is it's a lot of people's brain don't work in a creative space. And so think about marketing, they'll sit down and say, okay, I'm ready to market. Okay, well, all right, well, we got social, we got this, and then people name like 20 things they need to be doing, which, by the way, they probably do need to be doing all of them.
Yeah.
But let's start with step one, right? So what are the first two things, one thing people need to be doing when it comes to really sitting down and planning what?
So when I look at marketing, to me, the most important thing you can do is get the fundamentals in place. There's so many people that skip the fundamentals because they're not cool, they're not sexy, it's not Clubhouse or TikTok. They want to get tactical immediately. But the problem is, if you get tactical immediately and you skip the fundamentals, people end up, it's like throwing spaghetti up against a wall, and they're hoping it sticks. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they're like, oh, well, we did SEO or we did Facebook and it didn't work. Well, oftentimes it's not that it wasn't the wrong tactic. It was the right tactic. It was being done at the wrong time. Yeah. So the place that anybody needs to start, and frankly, where most businesses need to start, even if they've been in business for a while, the fundamentals, as you have them up on here on the screen. One is your target market. Who are you going to serve? How are you going to serve those people? Who are your 1 to 3 ideal client types that you want to attract? You have to focus, because we're not all like Amazon, right? Amazon can attract everybody because they got all kinds of money.
Right.
But if you think about it, what Amazon didn't attract.
Amazon, let me just say this too. Amazon is the greatest thing ever invented. I mean, I love it. So, but Amazon can have any name they want because they can spend any amount of money, because I'm just looking at, target market messaging. They can spend any amount of money to define what that word means to the consumer. But most companies don't have the budgets of Amazon. So you have to be very tight in your messaging.
Yes. And if you think about it, when Amazon started, they were selling books online. So they were hyper niched. Okay. We have to narrow our focus so we know who we're trying to attract.
Right.
And then once we know those people, we can start to look at our messaging. And when we start to think about our messaging, what we really want to do is we want to enter the conversation that our prospects are having in their mind.
Yeah.
We want them to read your message and go, "Oh my God, was John in that meeting that we had last week?" Or, was John in my head when I was sitting there thinking about this work thing last night? When you can do that, your messaging is going to be clear. Yeah. It's going to engage them, and it's going to encourage them to then take action.
Yeah. So let's dive into that for a second, because clear messaging is one thing. Call to action and actually asking somebody to encourage them to do business is another.
Yes.
And that's to me what defines really great marketing, right? The subtleness of both things that you're talking about, So talk about that, because I think that's the nuance of why people need marketing companies, right? To help clarify and define that.
Yeah. So I'll give you a perfect example. We have a client right now that has had a podcast for 2 years. They're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,000 downloads a day. Okay. So let's just call it 30,000 downloads a month, which, this is not a huge influencer type podcast, but those are pretty darn good numbers for a small business. Let
me just say one thing. I just want to comment on that one quickly. 1 second, Tim. Because I think a lot of people, where they struggle is they say, well, because I'm a big fan that everybody should have a podcast. There's an audience for everybody. People, I think now and in the future, their news sources are going to be people that they trust, much more than, some of the people that they see on the news. Amateurs are more vulnerable when they share information than sometimes experts who are afraid of making mistakes. Yeah. And so, but sometimes people will say, well, I don't want to start a podcast because what if only, I'm using your number, 1,000 people a day or 1,000 people a month downloading? What I say to them is, well, what if you gave a seminar and 1,000 people showed up? Would you be excited or disappointed? And they'll say, exactly. Oh yeah, that would be amazing. Right. So even if you have 150 downloads a month, would you be happy if 150 people showed up to listen to you speak? Yes. Well, these people are choosing to listen to your podcast. Yes. Nobody's forcing them. And so I just want to kind of just frame that a little bit for the person who's listening to that and saying, God, I wonder if I should have a podcast. The answer is yes. And just think about that kind of analogy.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead. I mean to break this down.
So they've got these numbers, which, 30,000 downloads a month, like I said, is pretty darn good for a lot of podcasts. Right. And they were generating no business from it. Okay. And the reason why, there was no call to action in any of their episodes. People don't take action unless you tell them what the hell you want them to do.
Correct.
So we need to guide them. It doesn't mean we have to be in their face, but we just need to remind them what we want them to do. And so your calls to action absolutely should be integrated with your messaging and how you communicate with your audience. Here's the easy way to do it. Okay. We use a framework from a company called StoryBrand. I did not invent this. Frankly, neither did StoryBrand. It's based on the hero's journey. Yeah. But when you use this framework, you are inviting your customer into a story where they are the hero and your company is the guide that can solve the problem that they have to get them from where they are to where they want to be. And one of the elements of that framework is your call to action. Yeah. What's your direct call to action for people that are ready to take that next step? And what's your transitional call to action for those people that aren't quite ready? Yeah. Right? I'm just in the beginning stages of looking at working with a business coach. I don't want to schedule a consultation. Well, maybe you have an email course or a checklist or a cheat sheet of some kind to serve those people and encourage them to give you their name and their email address. So now you've got permission to continue to serve them and add value to them, right. Help them get to know, like, and trust right. you so that they're ready to take that next step.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'll do, I kind of talk about this if it makes sense through my podcast, but just on that note, so one of the things I'll do is I'll say to people, hey, if you want my book and my ebook, my 100-page workbook ebook, or my book, you can download it for free at johndwoskin.com. Like, I stopped charging for my book, right? So that, just to kind of echo what you're saying, it gets people to my website. It gets people great, solid content. It gets people into my funnel. I'm not directly like asking for business, but I'm saying, hey, let me introduce myself to you. Yep. See if my content resonates with you. But just again, just kind of, just to echo your thoughts, you can do it subtly without sounding like you're kind of over promoting yourself, because it's all about the person, not you. Yeah.
You're selling without coming across like you're selling hard. Nobody wants to be sold. No. Right. And so you're coming from a place of value and service. Correct. Yeah. And if the pain that you solve is great enough for somebody, they are going to take that action, but you need to tell them what that action is. Yeah. And so when the pain's great enough and you're continually telling them what that next action is, they're going to take it. Right. Yeah. But until that readiness to change, like my wife talks about this all the time. She's a nurse in healthcare. Is she practicing right now? Yes. Well, thank you for her service. I mean, it's been a really tough year for nurses. Yeah. I mean, and thank you, workers, but yeah. I know she appreciates that. Yeah. If nurses know, I shouldn't say this, but in many cases, nurses know more than the doctors, and nurses are priceless. Nurses are priceless. Yeah. They're just, they see and hear a lot. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And, but if I'm a 2-pack a day smoker, right, I'm not going to change until I'm ready to change. So they can give me all the information in the world about why I should stop smoking and this and that, but they can't force me to do anything until my readiness to change is a 10. Right. They can't help me. And it's no different for any of our clients. Right. Right. Until they're ready. If they don't want to invest in marketing or business coaching, right, I'm not going to say or do anything that's going to convince them otherwise. Right. And if I do try to sell them hard and try and convince them, and they do actually do it, most of the time those clients are lousy clients because they're not committed. Right. Yeah. I always say I can never motivate anybody to work with me. You have to be ready to work with me. And you got to be ready to do the work. Yes. You got to be ready to do the work. Let's talk about content creation, because I think that's another thing that holds people back. How should people be thinking about content, and, how do you create something and then, repurpose it so you can keep on using it? A couple things here. One, from a content creation standpoint, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what medium, whether it's blogging or podcasting or video, resonates with you. Because if I tell you to use video and you can't stand being on video, you're self-conscious, you're nervous, it's just not something you enjoy, well, you might do it for 2 weeks and then you're going to quit. So, and doing something inconsistently is never going to yield results. So I think the first thing you need to do is figure out what medium works well with you. Yeah. Okay. Now, the second thing I'll tell you is I am partial to video.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why. Video can be repurposed into so many other forms of content, and it can drive your content should and can drive a lot of your social media activity.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're in this same boat. Okay. We're on a live shoot.
Yeah.
I do the exact same thing for our podcast. I use StreamYard. I do a Facebook Live, and then that Facebook Live interview gets repurposed.
Yeah. You gotta sign up for LinkedIn Live too.
I've applied like 8 times. I continue to do it, and until I get approved,
keep on doing it.
Yeah, until I get approved, I'm going to keep doing it. So, but we take that video, and now you've got YouTube. I can transcribe it. I can then convert that into my podcast. So we take that, we create a blog post. Our blog post has the YouTube video, it's got the podcast episode, and it's got the transcription in there. I take short form video clips, so 30 to 90-second clips. We usually do about 3 from each episode. We post those on social media.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. Quote cards. We do quote cards as well. So if the guest says something that was, really thought provoking, we can create a quote card that's just a static image with the quote, and all of those link back to the original episode.
Yeah. So smart. Yeah. I love everything you're talking about because, there's teams of people, whether there's a combination of the marketing agency you're using, the marketing agency, and I'm a big fan of virtual assistants. Which I think is amazing. There's a team that you can build, but you can get somebody to post, but you've got to create initially content. I think it's so important. Yeah. Let's talk about the company that is not really kind of seeing the momentum of marketing that they need to. They have an internal marketing team that's not really marketing, but they're just have some time on their hands, so they're doing the marketing. How do companies transition from kind of like winging it to find, because I think there's by using the people that they have that aren't really marketing people to actually transitioning over to that from a mindset perspective and, getting to terms that they need to invest in marketing.
I think that's where you need to start thinking about, you got a plan, right? You just said they're winging it. They don't have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you're never going to do things consistently. You're probably not measuring anything. And when you don't measure, you have no idea whether what you're doing is actually working or not, was a problem. So I think you have to start with the plan, and you have to understand that the plan you start with is not the plan that you're going to finish with.
Yeah, well said.
So when I look at marketing planning, we use for our business and our clients a 90-day marketing plan. Mm-hmm. I look at marketing as a 90-day sprint for a few reasons. One, our businesses are evolving quickly, and our marketing needs to be able to evolve with it as well. If we had spent multiple thousands of dollars on a 15, 20 page marketing plan this time last year or early last year, one, it's overwhelming, and two, it would have just gone into a desk drawer. You would have burned it come mid-March. So your marketing plan.
But I would say the importance of that is you have to have a plan, so then you know how to pivot the plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. You've got your marching orders and what you need to focus on. And with 90 days, it's long enough to start seeing some traction, but it's short enough where you can start to make course corrections and adjustments throughout the year. And so we use a 90-day marketing plan, 6 steps. Okay. This is 1 page. You got to keep this simple. If we overcomplicate it, people just don't, they don't implement. So 1, who's your target market? Who are your 1 to 3 ideal clients? Okay. That's the first thing you put on the plan. Even if you just have a paragraph of who your ideal client, your 1 to 3 ideal clients are, you're better off than most people. Yeah. Okay. You could certainly dig a lot deeper on that, but if you just start there, hey, these are the people that we're trying to attract. Then you got to have, what's your goal? What's my goal for the next 90 days? It needs to be specific and measurable. I intend to bring on 5 new clients in the next 90 days, for example.
Yeah.
Then you've got to understand your budget and your resources. So how much money do I have to invest each month? And then from a resources standpoint, like what you were talking about, John, do I have people on staff? How many hours can they devote to this? And do they have the capability to do it?
Yeah.
Right? If they don't have the capability to do it, they can have all the time in the world. It doesn't matter. So we've got to understand the budget and the resources from a time and a capability standpoint that we have.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Then,
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, so there's 3 more steps. What's my current plan? Okay. And when we look at what our current plan is, we need to, a lot of people may not have a plan. All I want you to do here is just outline what you're doing currently from a marketing standpoint. This gives us a baseline. We can't figure out what we need to do moving forward to get to where we want to be.
Yeah.
It's like our GPS until we tell it where we're starting from.
Yeah.
Then you're going to outline what you're going to do for the next 90 days. And then you're going to outline what metrics you're going to track. The metrics give you an idea of whether what you're doing is actually working or not.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right, let's rewind. Thanks for that. That was great.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a mini master's class, or I would say maybe a full master's class. So let's rewind a little bit. What's your backstory in a nutshell that got you into marketing?
So I'll make a long story short. When I graduated from college, I started my entrepreneurial journey. I got involved in a wholesale distribution company. We were selling consumer electronics, so home theater equipment. I mean, I got my feet wet and I just got hooked. I loved it. I learned more doing that in 6 months than I did in 4 years of college. And we grew that business about 60% a year for 9 years. We sold it. I worked for that company for another 3 years. And then I actually got laid off. So I got laid off by the company that bought us, which is not as uncommon as some people might think.
Yeah, I know it. I hear that all the time.
Yeah. So from there, I got into real estate, which was about the 2010 timeframe. So most people are like, "Oh my God, Tim."
Residential or commercial?
Residential.
Okay.
So at that time, there's opportunity in every market. I was door knocking people that were in foreclosure.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of short sale business, working with the bank to get them up to approve a sale for the house for less than it was worth, less than what they owed. I hated it, so I was in it like 2.5, 3 years. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to work every day, hating it. Before I loved what I did, it didn't feel like I worked a day in my life. I got to shift gears. And that's when I got involved in marketing. And initially, when I got involved in marketing, we were actually selling mobile applications strictly into the K-12 education space. And 3 years in, we had to pivot because of some changes in the app marketplace. And that's when I pivoted into what we're doing now, which is much more comprehensive marketing services for service-based businesses.
I love it. I love it. Ready for a quick speed round?
Sure.
All right. Favorite book and why?
The One Thing by Gary Keller. Because you got to focus if you're gonna get traction.
It's a great book. A book I read before his, which is one of my all-time favorites, is Essentialism.
Yep, that's another one that's on my list.
Great book. It's a great book. I love it. Kind of the same theme-ish, right?
Yeah,
of the book.
Absolutely.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Somebody told me that the day they stopped learning was the day they were going to die.
Yeah.
Never stop learning. Every day. Yeah. I'm just a constant learner.
No, I agree with that. Finish a sentence. One thing every company needs to do to raise their awareness of why marketing is.
Okay, wait. Say that again.
One thing every company needs to do to raise their awareness of why marketing is so important for their company is.
Because it's the foundation of their success. Without it, they're not going to be in business. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Define yourself in one word.
Disciplined.
Fast forward 100 years. What do you want your legacy to be?
That I had an impact on the people's lives that I touched, no matter how small.
Tell people how they can connect with you and who your ideal clients are.
Best place to go is our website, which is rialtomarketing.com. All of our info is there. If you love what we chatted about, you can get a free consult. Be happy to help you push through those roadblocks. Our ideal clients, 3 types. They're all service-based businesses: coaches, consultants, and professional service providers. So people like CPAs, attorneys, those types of folks. And we did put together some resources for your listeners, John.
Oh, yeah.
If they go to rialtomarketing.com/think-business, there's a ton of free resources there on all the fundamentals that we touched on. So our marketing plan, the messaging framework we use, some ideal client worksheets, all that kind of stuff is right there, and they can take advantage of it. They don't even have to opt in.
I love it. rialtomarketing.com/think-business.
That's it.
I love it. I love it. So a couple things, Tim, I kind of want to share some thoughts. I loved what you talk about when it came to creating a plan. I think it's so important. We must plan. We must have a plan A and really a plan B kind of sitting out there. I think if COVID taught us anything, we must have a plan B in case something goes wrong. Marketing is an investment, as you talked about it, and I talk about it all the time as well. It is not an expense. To me, it is something that not only do you dilute, but you ramp up, you multiply it and spend more on marketing. I think what you talked about so many things that are important and the details of the plan. But I think one of the things that I think is so critical is video and the power of video and how you can repurpose everything. Think community. Video is so critical. I read a study once that said a 30-second video is equivalent to 3.5 million words read. Even if it's wrong by 50 to 80%, it still is a great number. And I believe it because I think people can receive it really, really well. This type of interaction, which is very organic and real, is really, really important. And I think when it comes to video, leave your ego on the sidelines and just get out there and do it. I have a live coaching group. When I talked about video, it's a weekly coaching group. And I talked about video yesterday. And then I did my tip of the day, and the video was a mess because of technology with this. I still did it, and I put it in the private Facebook group, and I said, hey, just as we talked about, even if it's a mistake, you're still getting out there and doing it. So I loved everything that you talked about and the importance of just getting out, and marketing is the foundation of everything that you talk about. I'm a business coach, and I work with successful people who are stuck, and I get them unstuck. And I love having guests on the show like you, Tim, who can give guidance, give advice, go into detail about the plan that you talked about earlier to get people unstuck in their business and in their mindset and raise consciousness. I think it is so important. Think community, if you can, if you're looking to continually get unstuck, you can download my book or my 100-page ebook, which is a workbook, for free at my website, johndwoskin.com. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And if Tim can help you, rialtomarketing.com or rialtomarketing.com/think-business for all the free stuff that you're giving to Think Community, which I'm really grateful for. So thank you for that. Any final words, Tim?
Just get out there and start doing it. Take the next measurable step that's going to get you to where you want to be.
I love it. rialtomarketing.com/think-business. Tim, stay on the line. I appreciate your time. Think Community, thanks so much. If Tim can help you, reach out. Thanks, everybody.